TPN at technophilespodcast.com. I'm David Geisler, and this is the Technophiles Podcast.
When we are talking about anything that is so mundane that someone can no longer focus for more than 5 minutes on it without being bored to death, that is a job for a robot.
This week on the Technophiles Podcast, David and Jake talk about collaborative robots and what it might mean for the fourth industrial revolution. Hey everyone, welcome to the Technophiles Podcast. I am David Geisler, your co-host, along with Mr. Jake Gill today is with me. Jake, how are you?
I'm Mr. Jake Gill today, am I? I'm well.
My co-host, Jake Gill. I don't know why I said that. I think I was just kind of feeling time because the intro felt a little weird, but I'm just going to keep going with it.
Sounds good.
This is the Technophiles Podcast. Wherein each week we discuss something that's happening in technology that catches our interest. And Jake, a couple weeks ago, you and I got together to speak about the Falcon X Heavy launch, which I think was episode 327. And kind of the way we're doing the show this season is we're kind of bouncing back and forth. Sometimes you might have a topic you want to bring. I might have a topic. And this week it was my turn to choose the topic, I suppose. It's a little less timely compared to the Falcon Heavy launch. That was a really, really exciting episode. Thank you very much. But today we're going to be talking about Cobots. Now, I remember slacking you about this, and I have my own reasons why I want to talk about Cobots, but I slacked you and I said, I think we should talk about Cobots. And if I may, I think I got a message back from you that was like, wait, what the heck's a Cobot? So what was your reaction when I said this should be our topic?
I had no idea what you were talking about. I have never heard the word.
So it was a new word for me as well. And I wanted to do some research on it. Cobot, C-O-B-O-T. Obviously, it's a play on robot. It stands for collaborative robots. And I thought, it must just be a marketing thing. But it's actually becoming a term. And there's many, many companies that are working on Cobots. So Jake, so we're going to be speaking about that in just a few minutes. But you are Skyping in here with us from California. Mm-hmm. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
You're okay? Only okay. Uh-oh. I got to dig.
Maybe I'm underselling. No, I'm a little tired. I was up late last night working on some stuff.
Well, I saw that you were up. I saw on Slack you were up at least till 1:30 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah,
and apparently you were up
late.
A little after that.
It was pretty late. Well, I've started this year dabbling into the wonderful world of Adobe Illustrator. And when you start something, you just gotta finish it.
Is this pit a little deeper than you expected? Is that what's going on?
Oh man, no, it's so much fun. I'm having a blast.
Yeah.
But
it's a pit of fun.
I started this project for Skritter actually, and it's really funny because I got done with it, and after sleeping and looking and reflecting, I'm like, I got to do it again. It's not good enough. But
that happens.
I had so much fun doing it, and it was just one of those things where like. It just with anything, you get into the zone, and so and we were tossing up notes and chatting about it last night about this episode
about this show, yeah.
It was a little late night, so I don't know, I'm doing okay. I'm actually super excited to talk about this.
Well, we have
this was something that I didn't know about at all. I'd never heard this term, and it's kind of funny, but like. I mean, maybe, okay, it's not as timely as the Falcon Heavy because it wasn't launching, a couple weeks after our episode. But, like, it is incredibly timely because these things are going to be more and more and more around us and interacting with humans, and people need to know about these things.
Well, even as I was putting these notes together over this past week, I couldn't help but think about my episode with Alex just the week prior, episode 328, wherein he and I spoke about, we were talking about the HomePod, but really we ended up talking about smart homes, which really started turning into artificial intelligence and all that kind of stuff.
You can't not go there.
Right, it's true. And there were so many things. So what we're going to do here is, it was kind of fun last night. We were both on Google Drive here throwing these notes together. I was doing some polishing, and I invited you to kind of add in whatever you wanted. And I have a little story to tell. As I was putting in our notes, I was like, okay, I'll talk about this, and I'll talk about that company, and I'll talk about that company. All right, that'll be cool. I'll talk about what that means. And I kind of said to you, I said, how about in Act 2, we just discuss what kind of the robots will do. Basically, it's this idea of the fourth industrial revolution. And there's a lot of talk over the past couple of years, frankly, that we might be in that or entering it, certainly. And so I said to you over a Slack message or something, hey, what if that's like the second half? Let's use the Cobot idea to springboard into that. So I'm on Drive making my Cobot notes for Act 1, and I'm not really paying attention to the second half of the document that you were dabbling around in. And all of a sudden I scroll down and you had like a page of notes in there and thoughts. So I'm very excited. I have not even read them all yet. I'm very excited to go there after our break. So in the beginning here, let me tell you all about Cobots. Sound good?
Yeah.
I'm obviously going to be kind of selling them here a little bit because it is a kind of a cool idea. We talk about robotics often on this show. I think it is very exciting. And so I was watching some video on the internet about the robot revolution in industry. And there was this little dab, this one little side story about like, and then blah, 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 companies making a Cobot. And I was watching that video about a week ago and I perked up and I thought, what the heck is that? What? So I started Googling it. And then I was like, okay, let's do an episode on this. So collaborative robots. The idea is, to say it bluntly, the idea is that a Cobot is something that not only, I guess the elevator pitch would be that it's a robot that is designed to coexist with humans. Now, that's a pretty broad statement, but it is just the pitch. What it means more is that generally, if we think about robots in industry, out in robotic arms in factories. Let's use that as an example for a while here. I have many robots here that are not robotic arms, but quite frankly, most of them are, as I get into it here. So if we think about like the robotic arm and we think about the stuff that was happening in the 80s and 90s with automation and how, I mean, even isn't the Tesla Gigafactory famously like nothing but a bunch of robot arms now that I think about it. I don't even have that in my notes, but you and I have spoken about that casually. Am I accurate in saying that?
I'm not actually 100% sure, but
That's
I think that if any one of us envisions a modern factory and thinks about it, there is no way that we don't factor in some kind of technological influences that are all about increasing productivity. And that can be scary because a lot of people think, well, is this robot coming for my job next?
Right. And I definitely want to speak to that point.
And
I don't want to cut you off, but I want to speak about that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What's up? It's this.
Oh no, I was
this
just going to
Skype
say,
thing.
So, we can all think of robots in factories, and kind of helping in the industrial process. But I think what was interesting about you bringing this up is this idea that it's a collaborative robot. So it's not just
Well, okay, let me start it with this. When, technically you could say, well, even in the industrial revolution, even just factories machining things that will make parts, there's an element of robotics there and automation, certainly, right? But 10 years ago, maybe 20, but let's just say generally 10 years ago, when these massive production robot arms started getting put into industry, that was a big deal, because the fact is that if you create a grill or a car or a drill or anything that needs to be created in a factory, you being a company needs to create the machines that make those parts. And a lot of times that's executed by a bunch of conveyor belts and clever gears and rotations and suction cups. And sometimes it's just simple geography. I can't help but think about like the famous Mr. Rogers Crayon Factory video. Like there is not necessarily robotics there as far as a robotic arm, but every single piece and the way that crayon moves through the factory is manipulated. Well, the reason robotic arms became so popular and have become so popular and are really taking off, and I'm not even talking about cobots yet, I'm just saying robotic arms in industry, is that they are versatile. If you're going to make one kind of drivetrain for a vehicle in your factory, you need to create all these parts and all these machines that will make that happen. If you want to change how that drivetrain is made, or you're going to change, your factory is now going to design some kind of industrial fan instead of a tire or something. Those are a little bit broad, but you need to kind of rebuild your factory every time you have to make new parts. Is really what I'm trying to say. With the robotic
and that could take a lot of money.
It takes money. It takes time.
And a lot of time.
a lot of times, so much so that these kinds of new machining cycles get put into annual projections and stuff like that with companies. It's a big, big deal when you have to take a third of a factory somewhere and have it be remachined for a new piece. You can't just switch things out quickly. Well, robotic arms can do that fairly quickly, all things considered. If you think about a six-axis movement arm grabbing things and moving things, all you have to do is really reprogram that arm in theory. And so that's a lot better than making big, complicated conveyor belts and things like that. Now, the downside of a big, huge robotic arm is that it's big and huge. And what I mean by that is it is a classic robotic arm is by design usually very large, usually very, very strong, usually can do things that humans, can lift half a car and the humans don't even have to worry about that. It can easily pick up a drivetrain or whatever. And with incredible accuracy, execute certain tasks, assigning glue, welding, screwing screws in, everything you can think of. Mm-hmm. But they can be a tremendous safety hazard. In fact, a lot of people, when they think about robotic arms in factories, don't think about the fact that every single one of these arms usually needs to be completely walled off, usually with glass walls or plexiglass walls or something like that, occasionally with fences. They need to literally have what's called a safety cell installed around the robot arm, because imagine this humongous arm swinging and swaying and moving things, and obviously in a controlled way, but you do not need a human walking past that thing, and even if there's a yellow line painted on the ground or a forklift coming by and to get smacked by one of these massive arms. I can't help but think about also, just for some fun, in the very first Jurassic Park film, when they were designing that T-Rex, it used hydraulics and things. Actually, it used motion simulator technology that ended up getting used in a lot of robotic arms as well. But that was a very serious safety hazard. They had to make sure, because that T-Rex could swing left or right. And seriously take someone out.
Yep.
They'd be really careful with that stuff. So that is kind of the downside. These normal robotic arms are big and heavy. They're often installed right into the floor. So what if that robotic arm knew, through a series of sensors, was aware that it was around other things? A classic robotic arm doesn't care. It doesn't have any intelligence. I mean, it has a program, but it doesn't care where it is or why it's doing it or what it's doing. It's just doing it. Mm-hmm. So the idea of a cobot in general is a robot that theoretically, what it does, actually, I have a definition here and I have a source which is in our show notes, but it says cobots operate in a realm where human thoughts, human modes, and communication and human safety are paramount. So it's really human first. It is not a situation of robots first, get the humans out of the way. Mm-hmm. Very simply, you can imagine a robot arm. A cobot arm is usually designed to be lighter weight. A cobot arm is usually designed much, much smaller. It's often designed not to be required to be installed into the foundation of a factory. Sure. It oftentimes is designed to there's many of these robot arms that they can almost be placed into a pod where a human would have done a task, or right next to a human. That's the idea. A cobot, if it feels pressure, if it feels resistance, it has a lot of feedback sensors that a classic robot arm does not have. If a cobot arm bumps into a human or a shelf or a can of paint or a forklift or anything, it is aware that it has touched something, and it'll ease off and slow down and bounce back, and
or stop entirely, depending.
Stop entirely. Yep. Yeah. Furthermore, and I'll be speaking about this about some companies have taken it so far that they've even designed into these robots touch-sensitive panels where the entire side of the robot is touch-sensitive. And I guess I will jump to this real quick. There are videos out there on the internet with humans standing inches away from these robotic arms and frankly working with the arms. The human is holding something, the robot arm comes in and glues something into place. But what you see is fascinating. It blows my mind. Yeah. There's examples out there on the internet of a robot arm bumping into a person and it stops. Cool. That's very smart, very intelligent. But I think it's Universal Robots, but it could be a company called Festo. Perhaps they're both doing this. Definitely a company called Festo, as I look at my notes here. They have these panels that work on the arms so that when you touch the robot, it first slows down. And if you touch the robot a little tighter, a little more pressure, it'll actually stop. Now, that may not seem like a big deal, But I have to say, Jake, as I was watching these videos, and perhaps I'm showing an asset right now on our video if I can go back and find one, the interaction of the human with the robot was that of a farmer with an ox. It was shocking to watch the organic nature that this human not only was it about the robot, the cobot, being careful around the human would touch the cobot and the cobot would slow down or take a cue to go a little faster. And the human in the factory is touching this robot with a projected emotion and care and admiration for the cobot. And that is what made me want to talk about this, because that is fascinating now, because it's not just about the cobot protecting itself and not hurting people. It's about people having a relationship with the cobot. And I say relationship that's a little romantic, a little sci-fi, but so let me just kind of go down and talk a little bit.
You say that it's a little romantic and sci-fi, but like when I was reading through some of your notes yesterday and some of the articles that you had posted for us to peruse, there were a lot of examples in there of companies that were kind of really early adapters of these things, and like these robots have names. Like, people give them names, and like they, they talk about the fact that like, this is not my coworker in the sense that like I'm having fun with it, but like my job is entirely different now because of this thing. Because of this cobot. And
of course, Alex and I talked about the danger of naming things because you identify with them in our previous episode. But I mean, there can be benefits as well. I can't help but think about the science fiction film Moon, where each one of those harvesters that are out there on the moon, they end up naming each one of them just so that the single person that's up there in that story has a bit of an emotional connection to these things, and they want that in that case. Now, I digress a little bit, but you were about to say something about cobots.
Oh, no, just that, like, I mean, I think that there's like, okay, we're talking about a robotic thing and a human working together, but like you were saying, watching some of these videos, like there is this like mutual respect,
right?
Of what each other are doing, because together they are building something on the factory floor, and it's, that they're working hand in hand. And I think that any of these videos that you're seeing, like, I think that the response in the articles that I'm reading has been very overwhelmingly positive about the experience of working alongside a cobot. Like,
so yes, the idea of a classic robotic arm, and when we think of that, we're thinking of a big, huge, chunky thing with plexiglass all around it, practically picking up cars and doing whatever it needs to do with them. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but sometimes people get a little threatened by the idea of a cobot, because oftentimes a cobot might literally one-to-one be taking the place of a human on the production line, whereas a classic robotic arm is a reinvention of the product line, you could say, of how to create something. But I just want to touch a little bit more. So cobots are designed for flexible short runs. So again, that remachining thing, even though a classic robotic arm is better at remachining, so to speak, than completely setting up a new factory, the cobots are designed to be even more flexible. So much so that they don't even necessarily need to be programmed to operate. Most cobots, certainly cobots by Universal Robots and Festo and a few others here that I'll be speaking about, most of these cobots are designed to be trained, is what it's called. Not programmed, but trained, where you physically take the robot arm. Let's keep using this idea of an arm. Some of them are expressed differently. Some of these cobots are carts. Some of them are other things. But let's just talk about the arms. You physically take the arm and you grab it and train it to pick something up, and you physically are moving it. So you do not have to be someone who can write code or needs to write code to program, but they call it train, a cobot. You do it maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, maybe more. The robot learns. It uses its own algorithms to find the averages. Some of them use a certain amount of machine learning to then make their own choices. But I made a joke back in season 4 of this show. So this is maybe, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, I made a joke about self-driving cars and how they're using machine learning. Back then, it was about, machine learning will help them learn how to drive. And I thought, man, once we use machine learning, we're not programming this artificial intelligence anymore. we're teaching it. We're training it. We're creating a relationship. And I made a joke about like someday we're going to have to like, we're going to buy our new self-driving car. This is silly, but like in the future, oh, which car did you get? Oh, I got the blah, blah, blah model. Yeah, it's brand new. I'm still training it. It's a little wild. It hasn't learned everything yet, but we're getting there. A couple months, I think I'm really going to have my car and I are really going to have a good relationship. The way people would like train a horse or something, Right. And I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not joking as far as the concept goes. So the idea that a cobot can be programmed by training it, I think is really, really cool. Many of them work that way. A lot of them are designed to be, a lot of them are designed to function like a human arm, but actually in many ways, they are also supposed to make access to devices ergonomically more satisfying for a human. So it might be, you can imagine a scenario where a big, huge, strong arm, or actually a medium-sized, lightweight, strong arm, grabs a whole entire engine block, picks it up to the correct spot for a human to just real easily make some minute modifications, and then the robot puts it down or something. And all the while the robot is moving that big, huge engine block, hypothetically speaking, it's aware of its mass. It's not going to use that thing as a battering ram and bump into the person, all that kind of stuff. So oftentimes employees, to get all the way back to what you were speaking about, employees initially are sometimes nervous about cobots entering the workspace. But many, many, many companies, and maybe this is marketing, but I believe it is not necessarily only marketing, many companies find that the employees actually appreciate these cobots because the cobots are taking care of dangerous tasks that would potentially provide long-term injury to a normal human, back strain, things like that, broken fingers, who knows. And last but not least, they feel safe with the robots in the space. So I see here you have a Jarvis joke about Iron Man. What you threw that into the notes? What's that all about?
Well, so I mean, I think that for those that are audio only, if you're on listening to the podcast, it's a little bit hard to imagine what these things are like. But I instantly thought of Jarvis from Iron Man, I mean, very much a cobot.
So now,
when Iron Man is like building his stuff, I mean, obviously Jarvis is much more because it is like the computer program that's running his house and all these things. But like the arms that are helping him and being very kind with the fire extinguisher and whatnot. Like,
right. It's all very cute in that first movie where he's like, and the robot calms down.
It seems to me, though, that like they projected this idea of like what a cobot, at least with those particular arms, but not well enough, because I don't think that a normal cobot would ever do those things. It wouldn't mess things up. That's like the whole point.
Right. Exactly. A cobot does exactly what it needs to do.
So it'd be better than the robotic arms that are in Iron Man.
Absolutely. So anyway, the final thing that got me wanting to talk about this, and then I'm going to break down some of these companies a little bit, was there was a study by MIT. As I was doing my research, I learned about this, and that's when I found the information I'm about to speak about. That's when I knew that we needed to talk about this. So you can imagine, okay, you actually, Jake, brought a story to this show about a year ago about the cell phone factory that switched over to 98% of its workforce was robots. Do you recall that story?
Nope.
It was one of your quick stories, and it might have been in our Disney episode, which was like episode, I don't know, 314, 327. I can't quite remember. Okay. But anyway, the story that you brought to the show was about this cell phone company that honestly fired or let off 80%, 90% of their workforce. They brought in like 60 robot arms, and their efficiency went up by like 200% or something. So they got rid of people, and it went way up, and it was scary.
Yep.
I mean, scary in quotes. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, you replace people with robots, and things are faster and more efficient. You only have people working a line, and it's very dynamic, and they can do fine detail stuff and all these things, and they can make choices in the moment. However, a study at MIT on a BMW factory that was done back, I think it was in 2014, but they released their findings like in 2015. So this has been out for a couple of years, but this information has fueled other companies to explore cobots. They found that, in fact, companies or situations that had a cobot working with a human, or many cobots working with many humans, that was actually more efficient than just robots or just humans. And I was thinking to myself, how could that be? How is that possible? Because, you feel like, okay, great, maybe it's good it's clever, it's emotional to have people work with robots. You're not losing your soul and selling your factory out to just robots. If that's your perspective. I couldn't figure it out. And as I was learning about this study, what they learned is that yes, the robots were able to handle more tasks and maybe quicker with more accuracy, some of the bigger, broader tasks that the humans would struggle with. And it might be something as simple as just picking up something heavy. You know what I mean? However, what they found was that the robots equally motivated the humans. So actual human idle time was reduced by 85% in this study.
Yeah,
so idle time
crazy.
Yes. When I was in high school, for one summer, I worked in a sausage meatpacking factory. I was 17 years old, and it was before I was going off to college. I wanted to make a little extra money, and I worked in like a factory. And I worked on the casings. I put the casings on a thing for whatever. But I worked with a whole bunch of people. And I worked with many people. And one thing that I noticed while I worked there was this kind of emotional emptiness to everyone who worked at this factory. It was a fine factory. I didn't feel that this company was inappropriate with anybody, but you get your breaks, you eat your Subway sandwich, and you go back and you keep pushing the buttons and make the things go on, right? Mm-hmm. It was a clean place, a good place to work for, but it was just kind of dead. You could deduce by this reduction of 85% idle time in humans that in some ways, if you are paired with a robot that's doing interesting things and you don't have to do the hard stuff and you're creating a bit of a relationship with these robots, people were working harder and stronger and faster and happier because they were just motivated because they weren't brought down by the remedial things. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was fascinating. So in some studies, cobots and humans working together is significantly more efficient than only humans and only robots. How do you feel about that? Does that seem plausible?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if we're looking certainly long scale as well, just the adaptability of things. And you want people on the factory floor, especially for some of these things. There are super intricate tasks that are going on. And you do want human kind of awareness and things going into this process. And there are some things that robots cannot do yet, cobots can't do yet. And so, that totally makes sense. And if the robot is focusing on the things that are mundane and the buttons where the person's why am I pressing this? That right. Also means an increased percentage of error, right? If someone is not alert and focused anymore, things can go wrong. So yes, even this a lack changes of morale. The equation. And then you as a human can be working on, you are focusing on the tasks that are going on, and the robot is helping you in that process. And so makes sense. It's a collaborative process then where you are doing the things that that you can do well, and the robot is doing the things that no human should ever do. We don't need you to do this. We need you to do this other thing because that is what you as a human are good at. Makes sense to me.
That's super cool. I'm going to do some quick hits then. So with this idea, so that happened, that came out, 2015 or so. Mm-hmm. So since then, there have been a couple major players in the cobot industry, but there's many, many companies that are exploring this. And I'm going to I put together a quick bullet point here of some companies that are working on this kind of stuff. And I'd like to go through that with you.
Sure.
Alrighty, cool. Well, kind of the big hitter right now, one of the big hitters is a company called Festo, Festo. And they're a German-based company, and they are the company that I was speaking about in the beginning here. That it's really odd. They actually did not start in robotics. It is not like Boston Dynamics or something like that. It was actually a company, they really began their company as a machine making company. They just made the machines for factories. And a couple years ago, they started transitioning into robotics. And actually, the president of Festo, in an interview, spoke about how so many of his own employees, there's entire divisions now that are just writing code. And 10 years ago, they didn't even have that in their company. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he spoke about. And so it's fascinating to me that this company is in my opinion, one of the companies that's being very, very sensitive, not only about the robot being aware of the human, but this company is being very sensitive to the human's emotional relationship with the robot. Again, this is the company that put the touch panels on the robot. It's not touch panels like iPhone screens. It's touch panel like these surfaces on the robot are curved. They're smooth. You wouldn't recognize them as a touch panel. Do you see what I'm saying, Jake? Mm-hmm. You understand? Yeah. All right, cool. Sweet. And then of course the arms can feel these arms that Festo makes, but specifically it's called the Bionic Cobot. They make 3 main products, but the big one that's out there that gets a lot of attention is the Bionic Cobot. And it definitely uses gyroscopes and force feedback to feel where it is. And I was very, very impressed with that robot. It's very, very lightweight. It's not big at all. I don't know, half the size of a person, but typically it is a single-armed robot. It does not have a face type structure. It's just an arm. So they've kind of expanded on that a little bit as well. And they've created a bionic motion robot, which is based off an elephant trunk structure, which has different pulleys that pull and things. That makes perfect sense. Kind of interesting. And then lastly, they also are right now they're working on something called an Octopus Gripper, which there is video out there. And if you're watching the video version of this show, I am most definitely playing some of it because it's weird to see. It's super cool. It is the idea that they're modeling these grippers off of octopus tentacles, all the way down to having friction pads and stuff where like the little suckers would be on an octopus. However, the reason they're even doing this is, first of all, the motion sometimes is more dynamic than just a claw going out there and grip, clamping and releasing. Sure. However, something like a tentacle or an elephant trunk is more malleable, and so I'm making this assumption is it's more organic. So if it were to bump into a person or grab something, it already has some give and some sway instead of this hard metal thing just giving you the shoulder, so to speak, And so they're going in that direction, and that's really, really cool. Universal Robots is another big hitter. They're a Denmark-based company. I definitely have some footage of them that I'm showing. They work a lot in the car industry, in the vehicle industry, and they actually have 3 different robotic arms that they get very, very excited about, and I have them up here in my notes. Really, really simple. There's the UR3 robot, the UR5 robot, and the UR10. They're all the same exact model. They're just different sizes, and they have different density capabilities or weight restriction, weight capabilities. They're a very, very simple arm. They're only like 5 or 6 points of motion. They do not have any touch abilities, but they are very lightweight, and they definitely have the force feedback, and they are also highly programmable. So they are so programmable that, or trainable, even I can't get to the new terminology organically. They're so trainable that within a job, you can actually kind of quickly move them around and train them on a new thing, and they're very, very malleable from a stand-up point of view, and they don't cost much at all. Actually, these Universal Robots, the Bionic Cobot is the big one that they're very excited about. Usually you make back that robot's cost in 1 year, a factory. Sure. Whereas the big robot arms, it's a longer cycle. ABB Inc. is making a robot called the Yumi, Yumi, kind of a clever little punny kind of name there. And one thing that's interesting about what they're doing, again, it's another arm, but they actually just released that a press release saying that they are actually going to be integrating IBM's Watson technology into their cobots, which is very, very, very cool. Interesting. So Watson's just a powerhouse. It's kind of behind the scenes these days. Everybody likes talking about all this other machine learning that's happening, but Watson's still a very, 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 very strong. It's going to be the real game changer in a couple of years. It's a strong, I almost said piece of software, but it's more than that going on in the background. So Yumi, ABB Inc. is very excited about using the cognitive visual inspection stuff that Watson does. This is a little bit like you did a newscast a few years ago, Jake, about the equivalent of Watson doing face recognition and all these different things and learning. Okay, fine.
Yep.
Epson Robots, they have got another one here. Pretty simple arm.
I thought they just made printers.
I know, right? Well, they are making an arm. It's called the Flexon N series, and it's pretty standard. The only thing that is very exciting about it that I could find is that its physical design allows it to fold up into itself. So a lot of these robots might have 6 or 7 points of articulation, but at a certain point, they're still 3 feet by 4 feet. You know, they have a window dimension. This arm, I've seen footage of it. It can. They just were kind of smart about how it can fold up into itself and become very, very small when it's not used. And also they have some proprietary vibration technology that they have running to help it do, it expects its inertia, and if it feels vibrations, it can counter it. It's almost like noise canceling earphones. You know how they'll put like out a counter wave to block the sound waves coming in. This robot will feel if there's vibrations, and it can actually move to counter that a little bit. And that's also kind of exciting. I'm going to jump on.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting for like super intricate work where every millimeter matters.
Every millimeter matters, and maybe there's just a little bit of vibrations. Of course. So then we have the Locus. Locus Robotics is making the advanced Locus, right? So they are dealing with a thing that it's a piece of software, really, more than anything. They're executing it through some hardware, but Locus is working on this robotic advanced navigation, LRAN technology, and its idea is that it's going to be used for these kind of hive robot networks. Now, Jake, I know for a fact that you and I have spoken about networks like this, specifically in Amazon factories and things like that. The Lego factory has versions of this. We have talked about those kinds of things before on this show. What's interesting about what Locus is doing is they're actually adding in algorithms so that, okay, how do I say it? Sometimes when you look at, let's just use an Amazon factory as an example, and you'll see a video or a piece of footage. Of course, that's the same thing. You'll see all of these weird little square robots, like a beehive, hundreds of them moving around in this beautiful dance, grabbing packages and delivering them to other parts of the factory. But what you often do not see is any humans down on that floor. In fact, I think most of the time, no human would want to be near that kind of logistical hellscape if you're trying to not get run over by huge robots. I mean, there's Star Wars episodes that deal with this kind of adventure. And I think no rational human would want to be down there when hundreds of robots are making all these crazy decisions that you as a human can't even visualize or understand. Right. So what Locus is doing is they're actually working on technology that would use this same kind of hive idea, but to do it inside a space where humans also can be. So it might be a situation where humans are walking around moving boxes and these robots are moving around them. Most of the time, it's going to be implementing this kind of hive network into a functioning factory that's already going. So then these robots are going up and down hallways and stuff like that, and they're aware of the people. Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
I think I also read when talking about this navigation software, this advanced navigation software and human interaction in it, another instance of they were bringing up like how these things could be implemented in hospitals.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Because so the interesting thing about all of this stuff is that not only does this navigation software kind of it's aware of where its location is, but it also, because it has everything mapped out, it very quickly can deduce the quickest route to things. So when time is incredibly important, this might be really, interesting to the point where it's like, all right, we have, I don't know, like an organ or like blood or whatever. We need to get it here now. Yep. Put it in the thing and then it goes. So this, I'm just all full of the pop culture references here. But when I was reading about Locus and things, I couldn't help thinking about the little like toaster droid things that are in the original Star Wars on the Death Star that are like scooting around.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's totally like one of these things. And they're going to be
what, Chewbacca yells at.
Right.
There is
apparently that didn't have the LRAN software installed.
I don't think it did.
They hadn't updated yet. So
that was a wiki Cobot, a Wookiee Cobot. I don't know if you knew, but that was they were only programmed for Wookiee calls. So that's why when Chewbacca yelled at it, it was like, my bad, I apologize, and backed away. So there was I almost had an opportunity to speak to a hotel in Chicago which is using robots to deliver things to rooms. Mm-hmm. It's the Einstein Hotel or something. And we might still have an opportunity to set up like a video or an interview with them, but they are also using robots to go up and down and deliver things to rooms, which is very cool. And they don't bump into people. But actually, this also leads me to a company called Omron, which is creating a product called the Lynx. And the Lynx is interesting. It's very similar. It's another one of these kind of move things around robots. Mm-hmm. It's not an arm robot. It is designed that when you look at it, it looks very strange. It just looks like a cooler with some wheels. Like it doesn't look like a big deal, but it's kind of not supposed to, because what it's designed to do is to drive up next to normal hand push carts or other, things that normally humans would pull, like a forklift tray or whatever these things are called. Mm-hmm. And it just grabs them and starts moving them on its own. So it really is just a compact little. It looks like it looks like a really beefed up Roomba is kind of what it looks like.
Right. So, and quick interjection here, if I may, these things are incredibly interesting. Basically what it allows companies to do is get materials and resources where they need to go a lot more efficiently. And I think one of the examples of these things in action was at a farm that was doing a dairy farm.
There was,
and each individual robot that was implemented in one of these factories were covering 15 miles
a day.
Yep. And they just merely said like, we cannot hire, our company cannot hire enough people to do some of this kind of labor every single day. It would just be impossible for a company. And so these things actually make this possible and allows this company to stay modern and updated, and the people that work in there still get their jobs because of things like this. So like just seeing kind of that was incredibly interesting kind of realize the potential there of these.
I agree. And these Lynx robots are designed to be very, very versatile. They look like not much because they are designed to grab many different things and to work along with people. They are also using machine learning to learn their maps, to learn how to map. However, if you want to give them a little leg up, again, with the training, you can actually pull one around,
walk alongside them.
Walk alongside and bring them along and teach them a map if you want to just get them going. And then they will still make their own choices after that. Again, you're training these things. It's like, oh my gosh, it just gets very interesting and very, very exciting. Then I want to talk about Fanuc, which is creating a humongous force feedback robot arm. And they're just calling it's a bit technical. It's just the CR351A. Oh, that sounds like a Star Wars robot. Interesting. That's the first one to feel like a Star Wars robot. Everything else has kind of a human name.
Clearly Imperial robot, but
yeah, that's right. Well, perhaps because Fanuc, what they've done is they definitely have the force limited stuff going on, but they were very excited. What I could cull out of what I researched was that they were very excited about still creating big, strong arms. And so they were making kind of something closer to the classic robot arm, but still with the force feedback information inside of it. And then to compensate a little bit, it really kind of only has the force feedback, but to compensate a little bit, they painted it super bright green so humans are more likely to see it and not bump into it.
Yep.
And last but not least, they covered it in foam, just in case. So that's some low-tech solutions there too. Let's put some force feedback in there and put a bunch of pillows around it and it'll hurt people less. And that's fine too. Because again, they are still focused on creating like big, huge, strong arms.
Right. And it's still like not having to have those things, those glass cages or those steel cages or any of those things in your factory makes your factory more efficient. You don't have to design around them anymore. Right. Well, because and humans can go anywhere and not die. So that seems pretty good.
Exactly. It is so complicated and time consuming and expensive to move a classic robot arm with a security cage around it, we'll say, that oftentimes factories choose to rearrange the factory to the arms.
Yeah.
Instead of moving the arms
which seems really
around.
Inefficient, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Anything, on all of these things, it's like, it's all about more efficiency and reducing the amount of time that it takes to make any changes, which in manufacturing can be incredibly important. The second one thing changes, if you don't have to change everything else, I mean, you do, but the faster you can adapt and get up and running again, the less risk there is to make these changes, right? So
yeah, you're absolutely right. Last but not least, because I'm taking up a lot of time here, where I want to talk about Rethink Robotics, and they're kind of the most famous company when it comes to cobots, and a lot of people may not even realize this, but we've all probably, if you've done any kind of robot Googling, you've probably seen a Rethink Robotics robot would be the correct way to say that.
Is it a robot or a Rethinks Robotics cobot?
I know, I'm getting tongue-tied. A Rethink Robotics cobot is the way to. It is a bit of a tongue twister. So they have a main product called the Baxter. Now the Baxter, actually, about a year or two ago, it seems like I say that every episode, V-Lobs brought a story about Baxter in as one of our quick stories. And Baxter is kind of famously a red robot with 2 arms, and it can do a lot of things, and it can feel when people are touching it. It was one of the first robots to really do this force feedback stuff, but it also has a LCD screen with a face on it. Mm-hmm. And that screen mostly just shows eyes, but the idea is that it can communicate to its surrounding, just because here, what's an example? What's a good example? Dogs. Seriously, dogs, many anthropologists feel, are all agree that dogs and humans have co-evolved now for thousands of years or whatever. And in many ways, dogs have evolved eyebrow movement. They use their eyes for hunting to communicate with each other, but a lot of the eyebrow movement that dogs do, many people feel that came from this evolution thing, because what they're doing is they're actually communicating with humans, because humans use their eyebrows to express passive things like emotion and concern and all that stuff. Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. So if you get a robot to communicate certain things passively, that's also very, very helpful. It can show if it's pleased with what it's doing, if it's not pleased. Some people feel the screen is a little bit ridiculous. I think maybe they're onto something. It's not beautiful. It's a little awkward looking if you look at the Baxter. It's a red robot with like this funky screen with these animated eyes, looking like some kind of strange futuristic Furby. But I think I get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's about efficiency and reducing errors and allowing people to collaborate with these cobots even better, obviously, more efficiently.
And I just thought about something else with these eyes, if I may. I want to say this. I just realized that if they are animating the eyes to look where the robot's focus is, which I'm not, that's consider that gossip because I don't have a source for if that's true or not.
No, that's what they're doing. The eyes can serve a bunch of different roles, but one of the things is, much like humans, and actually if the sensors are good enough, and I think that what they're trying to go toward is being able to also read human gazes, because when we do things, we look before we do them, generally speaking. And so if it does the exact same thing, then we, collaborating with our robots, know what they're going to do next, which allows us to kind of reposition and change the way that we're doing things. Exactly. And if they can do the same thing, they know, oh yes, now the person I'm working with is going to go reach this tool. So I know that when it's reaching for this tool, the human is reaching for the tool, I need to do this. And so these things don't need to be stated anymore verbally. They don't need to be programmed. It's all felt in the,
The human can read the robot's eyes and know that, because otherwise you think about a robot arm, it's like, is it going left? Is it going right? Is it coming at me? Is it not? Right. There's an intent. Oh, there's intention.
Exactly.
That's what it is. Very, very cool. And so, that's what Rethink Robotics has been working on for many, many years. These days, they've also expanded into what they call their Click Smart Toolkit, which is really just only hands. I mean, they have 2 different versions of Baxter. They have the Baxter with 2 arms and a version called Sawyer, which is just the screen and a single arm. And it looks a little weird, but it still has its own identity. It has eyes, animated eyes and stuff. And so that is that. Jake, we're going to go to break, and I want to come back and talk about what our thoughts are on if we are entering the 4th Industrial Revolution or not. I mean, it feels like we are, but it's more about like, how are we and what will that mean? And I see that you have a bunch of notes here, so I don't want to waste too much more time. I've been talking a lot. I'll see you in a minute.
Okay.
And we'll dive in.
Sounds good.
Cool, Jake.
I wouldn't move. If I bumped into you, I wouldn't move. I'd know exactly what to do. I couldn't possibly push you away from me, so I'll choose to move with you. I couldn't run. Now if it was only me working with someone, we increase efficiency. I hope I work with you, 'cause I'm proud of what we do. Out on the line we have such fun, because this factory is the only place for you and me. Yeah, this factory can be thought of as my home. It's true, you go back to your family, I know. This factory now, I don't feel so alone. I shouldn't say how much I enjoyed today, I shouldn't say. For me this feels like play. I repeat these tasks every single day. I'm programmed to like it that way.
From TPN at Technophilespodcast.com, I'm David Geisler, and this is the Technophiles Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Technophiles Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Jake Gill, and we are talking about cobots, but we're gonna advance that conversation a little bit here, Jake, and I really want to discuss the idea of the fourth industrial revolution, which might be coming because of things like cobots, or we're already in it. I think it's a fascinating idea. You know, in revolutions, it's kind of like you can't say that it is one until it's historic. So right now it feels like we're in one or entering one. A lot of analysts feel that we are entering one. They're predicting we are. We may not be able to speak to that for another 100 years definitively, but if it is happening, and it sure seems like it is, let's talk about it. Real quick, let me talk about what the first three industrial revolutions are considered to be, and then I'm going to hand it over to you. I see you got a bunch of notes about economics, about people getting jobs, not having jobs, and that'll be very exciting. So the first industrial revolution was water and steam. It was that simple. It was like the steam engine and stuff like that was all very exciting. And then somewhere around the First World War is when the second industrial revolution happened, and that was electricity. So somewhat, I think telephones precede that a little bit, but it was the light bulb and starting to have things powered by electricity. And which also gave way to mass production and stuff like that.
Right.
The third industrial revolution was a little closer to us, and that was the electronics and information revolution. And so that was not only mass production, but highly automated production and computers being a part of the process, and being able to use computers to program things and all of that. Actually, no, that might just be that simple. So what some people consider to be the fourth industrial revolution is this idea that we're entering a space where the physical, the mechanical, the software, the physical and mechanical, same thing, but I guess I mean biological, mechanical, and abstract and digital, the lines between those experiences, that is becoming incredibly blurred, and they're all helping each other to the point that it is an exponential increase. And this exponential increase was not observed in the first three industrial revolutions. You know, it was like, okay, well, we have mass production. That was a pretty good incline. Water and steam, that was an incline. What's happening right now is there is an exponential incline, a curve. And so some people are trying to process that. And so what are your thoughts on the matter?
Well, first of all, I don't think we're gonna have to wait 100 years or 200 years to figure out if this is indeed a revolution. I mean, just looking at the first, second, third, and fourth, like together, the first one happened, and then it took a long time for the second one to happen, and then the second one happened, and then it didn't take actually all that long for the third one to happen. I mean, it's almost like Moore's law is being applied to some of these things. Where it's, I mean, and maybe Moore's law can't work in that way, but like the fourth, if it is coming, I think we'll probably know before 100. It's not going to take 100 years.
Sure.
For us to figure it out, because our lives will the implications of what is happening right now with machine learning, with AI, with these kinds of different things our lives will change. And I mean, a lot of the people that are projecting what is happening right now, I mean, you can be doom and gloom about it, or you can be optimistic about it. It kind of depends. And really, we're going to have to wait and see. But like, people are saying that like by 2025 and things, like 35 to 50% of the jobs in the current market are at risk of being gone. So if it is indeed a revolution and these are the projections, then like we'll be talking about it in 10 years on Technophiles, David.
The idea of cobots are cool. It's nice that it's the general concept is not wipe out all of the human workers. Mm-hmm. The general concept is let's combine the strengths of each. But let's face it, a lot of people are not going to have jobs.
Sure. Well, I mean, they're not going to have those jobs, right? I mean, I think that if we go back and look at, it's hard to say, but like that statement, I feel like has been used for a very long time. Mass production was going to get rid of jobs. Yeah. No, it didn't. It changed the workforce. We didn't have to do those certain things anymore. So those people could go be inventive and do other things. The third revolution, like, I mean, unemployment right now is at like an all-time low. So, you know, I don't know.
I'm reminded
robots
of what Alex
are not really coming for my, you know, I mean, yes, there are going to be jobs that are gone. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But typically I think that societies shift.
I can't help but think about, I'm a bit of an optimist and I'm hoping for a future where the robots take care of things and it leaves humanity to do things that are significantly more interesting and perhaps creative and stuff like that. But I'm reminded of what Alex said in our episode last week, where he was talking about the Renaissance was the byproduct of an upgrade in a technology, so to speak. And it was about double-ended bookkeeping or something like that. I'm saying it wrong right now. But he was speaking about this jump in technology. And all of a sudden, a bunch of people, quote unquote, didn't have jobs, you could say, and it actually led way to all these amazing paintings and this like re-examination of what it is to be a human and all of that. Mm-hmm. And so I hope for that. I am positing a more cryptic future here for the sake of the conversation. Mm-hmm. But I think that you're right. I think the people find the place to go. Now, if a person is a truck driver and they only want to be a truck driver, then they might not have a job. Once all of the self-driving cars self-driving trucks take over. Like,
the beautiful thing about humanity is like our adaptability, right? Like we can survive like anywhere to the point where people want to go live on Mars, which is like nuts. Our planet is pretty darn good compared to Mars, but like we can, we're adaptable as a whole. And so I don't think that we can look at the individuals here because we're going to have to wait and see. We really are. Yes, some people will lose their jobs. Like that happens, a boss can make a bad decision and people lose their jobs because something horrible has happened. So it's really hard to say. But if we look at the economics of this, the reason that I think that we're not going to have to wait that long to figure out if this is indeed the fourth evolution is you had mentioned earlier that like these robots are, some of them, depending on your size, right, they're going to be different. But prices continue to fall, and I think that they will get cheaper and cheaper. There was some research done by Barclays, which is they kind of do all this data gathering. They start predicting things, and a lot of people bet a lot of money on that stuff. Right now, the average price is about $24,000 for a cobot. They pay for themselves very quickly. I think you said most factories see that these cobots pay for themselves within 1 year of service.
1 year, that's correct.
So, increased efficiency, making all these changes, the fact that things don't need to be kind of reworked all the time, right? These are all really good things. And so that $24,000, this might be an employee at some company, and now it's this cobot. But that's a pretty quick time to pay itself back. Right now, this only makes up 5% of global industrial robot sales. But as you mentioned, the fact that not very many people probably know what a cobot is reflects that fact.
And it's a bit of an expression still, but more and more it's becoming a recognized term.
Right,
cobot.
Well, and I think what's interesting is when you really think about it, though. There is very much a separation between robots in industry and what we do normally in our day-to-day lives. We do not interact with robots
Right. That's the stuff like the Boston Dynamics dog is going to be more that kind of thing, where it is maybe quote unquote a cobot. It's going to be sensitive and aware of the humans it's around, but it is in a different space.
So we'll know that we're in this fourth revolution or whatever when we're walking around and it's no longer weird to have a cobot near us doing whatever it's doing.
Like,
whereas right now,
when cobots feel like iPhones,
if you saw a robot, you would be like, what is happening? Because they're nowhere other than in the places that robots
with the
always
exception
are.
of, they're nowhere except like Boston Dynamic videos on YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah, giving people nightmares and stuff. So estimates by things like Barclays and Research and Markets, which is another firm that gathers data and makes predictions. So they say that it's about $100 million a year industry right now, but they think that by 2020, it'll be a $3 billion industry. And global cobot high growth phase is predicted to grow until at least like 2025. So things are going to keep ramping up. We're going to see prices falling. We're going to see more people entering this space. So what does this mean? So I don't know. Do you have any comments on this? I mean, they're estimating that there's going to be a 40% yearly rise in the near future of these things.
Yeah, I think that this is, I don't know. It feels I think this is happening a lot quicker than any casual person cares to admit.
Well, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, we said PR, but like a lot of companies that are introducing these things don't talk about it. It's not like they're advertising, hey, our space is like, join our cobot community. You know, you're going to work alongside your robot companions and you're going to work really well. Right. And they don't talk about it because then people are going to really freak out and say, oh, my God, I don't have a job. But
that's what it is. Do you know what it is? That's why is because the robots aren't quite there yet. So we just saw Boston Dynamics release a video about one of their bipedal robots doing backflips, and it looks like a real human when it's figuring out all of its math to stay balanced. But it's shocking how much the instincts of the algorithms, we would call them instincts for a human, but the algorithms keep this thing balanced in the way it moves around. Before that, robots, you just said, like jumping around giving people nightmares. It's because they're still a little creepy aesthetically, or they're not quite there. So maybe that is why companies are staying quiet, because it is still a little strange. Once a robot doesn't feel like a robot anymore. Oh, case in point, this hotel that I was speaking about, I was hearing from a couple friends that they were given a preview of what these robots do at the hotel down in Chicago. And honestly, maybe we'll do a follow up on this. But one of the employees at the hotel was like, yeah, we have these robots. It's really cool, blah, blah, blah. And the people were like, no, out. I don't want it. That's creepy. And then they saw the robots and they said, apparently the reaction was, oh, they're adorable. Oh, they're great. And all of a sudden they wanted to interface. And so collectively, culture needs that, oh, but they're adorable moment.
Yeah. We need our BB-8s and our R2-D2s.
Yeah.
I'm just going to continue with the...
Because right now they're still creepy in our minds.
The pop culture reference guy. But
I think all of culture still thinks that it's creepy.
Yeah, we want that a little bit to some extent. I mean, we want to be able to... Whether or not these robots don't have emotions and feelings, but we want to project those things onto them anyways, because that allows us to kind of interface with them better. So... Yep. If we're talking about economics, we obviously have to beg the question of like, what does this mean for blue collar jobs and trade unions and things? And like, honestly, my take, and after reading some of these articles, is it's super hard to say. Companies that are adding robots, they see a boost in productivity. We also see, though, that they're not letting people go.
Oh, what? Really? This is news to me.
People have different roles. They have less stress doing their work. Like, it's not like we're going to get our cobot. I mean, the entire point of a cobot is a collaborative robot that is working alongside a human, right? Yeah. You don't just build a robot and take the human away. Then there's no interfacing that's happening. There's no collaboration. So a lot of these companies are doing some of those things. Okay. So economically too. So we have some of those things in the articles that were interesting were older employees that were working with cobots. They have less physical health strains.
Yep.
Their back is not going out. They're not breaking their hands. There's less risk of injury, all these different things. So they can work at their job longer.
Happier.
If they want to. They're happier. There's less overall cost for the company on these kinds of things. And there's less cost to a society at large because these people are able to work and contribute and spend their money socially, right? So
It's like when a
that's
company
good
wants
thing.
to pay for annual health checkups through the insurance because that's cheaper than having to pay
Right.
for injuries or sicknesses.
Or like, you know, they spend money on making sure that like people have like active time or like healthy
Right.
food
Yes.
or whatever. Because like it's an iceberg economy. We don't actually see a lot of the hidden costs of doing something every single, like lifting whatever every single day until you're old and you can't do anything anymore because you're physically like messed up from your job, right?
Yep.
So these things, like, it's really hard. Long tail calculations, right? I think that we're actually saving money by spending this $24,000. Or, you know, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to say. I'm not an economist, and it's like these calculations are probably incredibly complex. But what we are seeing in current early implementations of cobots is a positive, I think. And here's the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting and a large takeaway was the use of cobots in small companies may, at a minimum, allow jobs to be local. And this was said by a Florida-based company, Mr. Rochelle from Stenner Pump in one of an articles. And they acquired a Baxter 18 months ago. And like they're saying, like, look, the fact that I have these collaborative robots and my boost in productivity and in efficiency inside of the factory means that I can be competitive and I can stay in the market and I can employ my 90 people that work here for me.
And I don't have to move to a different state or country or whatever.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So, you know,
interesting.
yes, maybe some people
That's cool.
didn't get a job because there are cobots in this workspace, but 90 people still have their jobs because they can be in the market still.
Okay.
And so, I mean, like,
That's cool.
this is a little bit in the jobless future thing, but like I was envisioning, like, I don't know, for some reason when I was reading these articles, I had this like image of this like sorry, I don't mean to be like rude when I say that term, but like, let's say it's like some like auntie, you know, a little bit like semi-retired. And she's like, I am a great cook and I just want to like do my thing. And so like she could have her little like cooking, I don't know, it's in the future slightly, right? So she has this little autonomous vehicle that drives her around to places that like, you know, there's a lot of people gathering and they need food or whatever. And then it's her and her cobot, and her cobot is like helping cook food for her and like wash the dishes. And like now she's a one-woman show where she's invested her $10,000 in her cobot, and she can be an entrepreneur now because this thing comes with the ability for her to do this now that she wanted. I mean,
the cobot can wash dishes for her, or the cobot is picking up the supplies for her, literally putting them into this vehicle in this scenario.
And it's a one-time cost. So for a lot of these companies, these are one shots. You spend the money and then all of a sudden, like, yes, there's maintenance costs, but you have to pay employees every single month, every single whatever. There's always a
Humans
cost.
have maintenance costs too.
Oh, well, of course they do. But like a cobot, you spend your $24,000 and like it doesn't cost you $24,000 every single year. Which eventually, once it pays for itself, means that a good company can reinvest their money in, whether that's more cobots or more humans, whatever. But like, so those to me all look like good things economically. So cool. You have more time and energy then that can be spent on training human employees for things other than the mundane tasks, which means that they can make greater contributions to society and to the company.
Yeah, the general idea is that the cobots can take care of mundane things and difficult things, and then the humans are actually empowered to do more satisfying things.
Yes. And then the other thing here is like speculation, obviously, but like more and more cobots for various industries and technologies means like prices will decrease, right? Technologies will improve because these things are more in the market and people are inventing new ways for these things to interact and collaborate with us.
Because they're so easy to train.
This actually means like more jobs for people, whether they're making software, they're making tools, they're making the robots, you know, and a lot of things that we can't even think of yet. I mean, it's impossible at the front of a revolution to think of how things are going to change, but like, I don't know. Again, I thought of like the woman who buys the cobot that can help her like open her dream cooking shack that she never had before. That like, you know, it's like, who knows? But I think all these things are looking pretty good to me. So, and this kind of goes into what you were talking about in your notes here and like our prediction here of like the jobless future.
You know, I need
Do you want to talk a little bit
careful.
about that? Because I have some notes in here, but
yeah, I want to make sure that I'm clear on my personal stance. I'm an optimist when it comes to the jobless future. I am loving the things you're speaking about. For the sake of this conversation, I was trying to present a question in the beginning there, but I do want to say personally that I'm actually very excited about the very points that you've been making.
Yeah,
because I did add in the show notes. In the show notes, I put in the jobless future thing. Yeah, not because I wanted to be a proponent, but because I said, let's consider that point. As well.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, this is so. Some of the articles and we have talked about this in the past, but this idea of like we might need universal basic income because machine learning, AI, robots, all these different things, they are coming for our jobs. They're coming for some of them anyways.
Okay.
And they are coming for, so one of the good things though, like if we want to be optimists about this, and I think we should be though, that there are things that robots that can do better than humans. And when those things apply, when those things happen, they should be done by robots.
Yeah.
When we are talking about millimeter precision, every single time, when we are talking about lifting heavy objects and doing it precisely every single time, when we are talking about anything that is so mundane that someone can no longer focus for more than 5 minutes on it without being bored to death, that is a job for a robot. We owe it. Like the positive here, and there was a great article that was kind of talking about this, so I really lifted this idea from this article, but like we owe it to humanity to not make people do crappy things they don't want to do.
Fair enough.
I mean, like, I know that there are wages associated, but like factories, like even some of the things like our phones that we use, man, there are some horror stories. Ooh, that's a lot of notifications. But there are horror stories from, of people who are like committing suicide and things at these Apple factories making phones, they're not happy. These, right. and like, I don't know. I don't want to dwell on that kind of stuff, but like, if we can make people's lives better by having these robots collaborating with them and make work better and increase efficiency and have them have more purpose at their job, that's a good thing. So not related to working here, but cobots and their touch sensor awareness, like I was thinking that this might actually be amazing for increasing accessibility to people who need more accessible things. Like these touch sensors or something like, maybe it's not a seeing eye dog anymore. Maybe it's a cobot that is out with you, or like an aid for like the elderly, this arm that is in your house moving around where it's like lifting objects, kind of helping them with other things, doing these things where like you actually are more empowered to be more independent because you have these things assisting with you. Like, I don't know what this future looks like, but this technology has tons of implications everywhere. So, I don't know. I think that you and I are on the same page on this of like, I think we're optimists and we see these as like, it's hard to say how things are going to change, but things are going to change. And I think for a lot of people, like that means a good thing.
I think so too. What would you say, just as an experiment here? I apologize to put you on the spot. What would you say to someone who says, well, I'd rather lift the heavy thing and have back problems than not have a job at all. You can imagine someone having that perspective who maybe is losing a job. And let's just keep it really basic, like in a factory or something. I'm willing to do honest, hard work. You can kind of hear these people saying this. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts there? I don't know what that answer is. Because we can talk about this macroscopically, and honestly, we've even used specific examples, like the woman with her hypothetical cooking company, which I just love that example. How would one communicate this idea to someone with that perspective? What do you think?
I mean, I think that is, I don't know. I mean, I would feel really bad for them. And just like I would feel bad for anyone that's job has just been eradicated because the industry has gone away. But I think that is part of kind of our path forward for humanity and for life in general. Like sometimes things no longer, like we don't need things anymore. And like we have to adapt. And so, but I think that when that happens, right, we need to look and we need to check and we need to figure out like why that has occurred. And to me, one of the largest things is like, and this goes directly to the bad here, is that with the rise of AI and machine learning, we might see that more and more industries rely on machines over people. And if this happens And they don't take the perspective of we owe it to humanity to improve these people's lives and make these workers more productive and feel like they're contributing more and not doing the most mundane thing ever, right? If they only care about the pure profits, then I think that we are in a lot of trouble. If a company only cares about the bottom line of making money and we neglect human elements, then we have serious problems.
That's tricky because like capitalism is about the bottom line.
Right. And so where is that balance between, I mean, a lot of times, right, you see like subsidization, like there's subsidies or things or programs. So, and that was my other thing. One of the bad things about this job of future, I actually think that like, if we're talking about an estimated 35 to 50% of jobs being at risk or lost due to automation, then I think we do have a problem in the short term. I think that in the long term, things are going to be okay. In the short term, we might see unemployment spike a little because my personal take is that public policy is often late to the party. Okay. I think that we're still having problems. Like we still, and not even, this is not even about robotics here, but like a lot of America's homeless population is veterans. People have service. They've served, they come back home and their skill set does not always transfer to the normal job market. And so these people feel abandoned in a little way. I mean, I don't want to speak for any of them because I have never been in this position before. But we know data-wise that a lot of that there is a large percentage of the homeless population that are veterans. So what I'm saying, the reason that I bring that up is because publicly, our government was totally cool with investing lots of money into the military, but they didn't think about that step of what happens when they're done. How do they reintegrate back into a normal society where they're not in the military? And so if our government and our companies don't think about the fact that like what happens when 50% of our jobs are gone because we have cobots or whatever, or any kind of automation or things, then we might be in a lot of trouble in the short term.
In the short term. Yeah. Our messaging in this episode is confusing me a little bit because there are times where we have examples of jobs being lost. And then there are times where there's examples of the jobs not being lost. I guess this is still this is a very wobbly pendulum.
I think that overall, if we're looking at a broader spectrum, we're not going to lose a lot of jobs. I think that, and maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's tricky. So hard to say. Like, I think, as I said before, I mean, I think that when we are projecting the future, it's like, we're always like, I don't know, there's going to be part optimism, part, pessimism and things. And so it's going to be hard to say, but like, traditionally, historically, we have not, like, people still work.
Okay, so there might be a lull. We might see a lull, a temporary lull while culture transitions, but within a generation, it comes back on track, I think. Is that how this works? There's going to be,
or maybe it's not even a generation, but like, I mean, I think it's safe to assume that some industries will be lost. Or they will be repurposed to the point where a lot of people, I mean, we talked about this in our truck episode, autonomous trucks.
Episode 304.
20 million Americans. I mean, I didn't go back and listen to this, but like there are a lot of people in the trucking industry. A lot of those people are not going to have
truck drivers
jobs
anymore. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll be jobless, but they won't be truck drivers anymore.
They will not have that job anymore.
That's true.
So how do we deal with that? I think the important question here is not how do we deal with that? It's how do companies deal with that? How do they repurpose their workforce or whatever? I mean, we have to think about it. I don't know how we're supposed to deal with that. Me personally, I look back to another episode where we're talking about self-driving cars, and I say 35 to 38,000 people every single year die because of car accidents, and 95% of them are human error.
Right. Yes,
so
we know that definitively.
To anybody, but like, dude,
put the robots in the cars.
The sooner that we can not drive, the better.
Yep.
I don't want to die via car accident. I don't want people that I know to die via car accident. So someone might lose their job. That's unfortunate, but I think that it's better for humanity in the long run. And I think that this is the same kind of thing. I think that reshifting purposes so that it's not mundane labor and things, I think that is a good overall positive. And I don't know, we're going to have to wait and see how things change. But some industries will adapt and change, and there will be people that don't have jobs.
And a single company, Yeah, a single company may not care about letting a bunch of people go if it's a lower bottom line. However, I can't help but think about like Bill Gates' perspective on this robot tax idea. That we spoke about that about a year ago, very quickly on one of our episodes.
Yeah, and that came up again and again. Yeah.
It wasn't a way to keep jobs, but it was a way to at least initially help balance. I mean, frankly, it felt like it was a way to demotivate robots in companies by making you have to pay a tax if you use robots. But I think his concept is that economically things stay a little bit more balanced. I don't know if it's a little shocking to think that someone like him maybe doesn't want more robots, but what?
Well, right. Or this conversation about universal basic income and things, which like some European countries are already trying. They're modeling this and they're checking it out. And like the things that I've been reading, I don't have any quotes and I don't have any articles, but like actually a lot of them have been overwhelmingly positive.
So maybe it is Star Trek.
There might
maybe
be
it is Star Trek where it's a bunch of robots and no money. Maybe that is that the goal? I suppose maybe it is.
I don't know. I mean, I think it would be interesting to live in a world where we don't have to do mundane things and we can focus on other things. I mean, it sounds pretty utopic to me. I'm sure that Black Mirror could come up with a very dystopic version of this as well.
So something that's mundane is very easy to quantify. How many widgets come off of your line when you're pressing widgets? If culture starts entering
and how many
that
mistakes,
are less,
right?
Well, yeah. I get
like
you.
All those things have to get factored in, right?
I agree. I'm expanding out into like, how do we have currency and economy when the value of one's existence is less quantifiable? But I guess that's a shift. But anyway, that's maybe a conversation for another episode. But anyway,
to me sounds like this whole conversation. I think that, like you said, we are both optimists. We think that there's going to be positive things. I think that what we're seeing, right? Like these things have been around for a while and I haven't heard. I mean, yes, some news sources might have these articles about how automation is going to kill everything. But like automation has been happening for a long time. Lots of people have jobs. Unemployment still pretty low, at least in America. I can't speak for the global economics, but like seems like people are spending money and making money and doing things. And so I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. I think if we go back here and we look at what this episode is about, it's about cobots. It's about collaboration. Right. And so these people are not, these companies that are investing in these things, these people that are building these robots are not building a robot to take your job. They're building a robot to help make your job better.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Jake. Exactly.
So we're going to have to wait and see. But like, that sounds good to me, man.
I'm for it. That's not the point of this episode, but I get it.
Or disagree, right? I'm gonna.
Yeah, you're gonna do the outro.
My co-host, but like, no, I mean, let us know in the comments, right? Tweet us.
Do you think you could do the whole outro right now?
What's that?
Do it. Do you think you could do a version of the outro right now? Go for it, Mr. Co-host.
Man, I don't know. Do you have your?
I just have it memorized these days. I don't know. Just say all this stuff.
Well, okay. So, yeah, I mean, whether you agree or disagree, we would love to hear what you guys think about this, your take on cobots in general, or kind of this, are we in the fourth revolution? Sorry, not industrial anymore. Please let us know. You can comment on YouTube. You can comment on Facebook. David, if they want to talk to you about this, how can they reach you?
People can find me on Twitter at Raptor Paint. And that's also my screen name on Instagram, even though less conversations happen there, I suppose. Yeah,
and you can actually find me on Twitter as well, Critical Owl, on Instagram as well, Critical Owl. If you want to see some of these, I don't know how distracting this monitor is in the background.
I think it's been going.
So,
some of your creations,
it's a bunch of
your babies, your creations.
There. Yeah, it's also my other creation with my wife. It's a lot of my kid doing fun little things and that stuff. But anyways, yeah, join the conversation. Let us know what you think about cobots and the future. Are you going to lose your job? Is your job going to be improved by this kind of thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I think we could say it sure feels like the companies that are making these cobots are making them for the right reasons, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that there's positive intention behind a lot of the things that are driving this forward. And, we'll see if that kind of pays off in the long run. So,
Cool, dude.
Yeah.
All right.
With that being
awesome.
said,
Jake, we'll talk to you in a couple episodes or something. We don't know what that topic is. It'll be yours to bring, but I can't wait to do it.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I have a couple ideas.
All right. It'll probably be about 3 episodes from now is what the schedule's looking like right now.
Cool.
Cool,
I
dude.
look forward to it.
Thank you so much. This was a blast.
Thank you. This was a blast. I'm gonna let you. I think that's it.
That's the end of the show.
So with that being said, I'm critical out. No, I already said that stuff. It doesn't sound as good.
We're done. We're out.
Yeah.
If only we had a robot to help us with this outro. A Cobot artificial intelligence.
The
All right, cool.
episode is over. Stop talking.
There it is. I'll take it. I like it. All right, Jake.
All
Catch you
right,
later, man.
Bye.